So World 600 1980, that was an eventful week because before the race, there had been a Waylon Jennings concert. All right. Now, I want to know something. Did the riot start with the Hells Angels or when you kissed Donnie Allison?
Nope, I'm going to tell you when the riot started. Cale knew Waylon, Cale Yarborough.
Yeah.
They were in their bus out there with Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson was an honorary starter, going to be the honorary starter on Sunday, and he was performing at Carowinds. They're in the bus over there, and Cale says, come on, let's go over there. And we walked over, went in the bus with him, and there, I don't know what they were on, but they were popped up. And people don't remember this, but he come out an hour late. All them drunks all day long are in that hot grandstand.
I remember.
Nobody's on the grass down there. And here was son. You remember who performed before him? Reba McEntire.
Oh,
she wasn't even famous. She was
Really?
the girl that sung before him.
The opening act.
Opening act was Reba McEntire. Who the hell heard of Reba McEntire? But she opened up for him. That he was finally Willie said to him, we was in the damn bus with him. And Willie said, we need to go, man. You need to get out there. Waylon comes out there. He's all pumped up. He's a half hour, 45 minutes. Them people in that grandstand, they're all drunk. Here comes all them people around to get on the grass. Now, these people that paid, they're thinking, why ain't we down there? Open the gate, let us down there. He sung 2 songs, and his bodyguards were the Hells Angels. They were over by the tunnel over there. And they start throwing them bottles. Me and Cale's down there, all the pit crew and everybody. You probably was down front too. And they started throwing them bottles. They weren't coming far, but boy, when they start coming further, Cale said, we need to get out of here. So we start getting out of here, and here comes the Hells Angels down there. And Waylon come on the speed. He said, all right, you all going to calm down or we're going to quit. And hell, he should have been out there when he was supposed to start to perform, and nothing would have happened.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was an hour late, and then people were drinking more beer, and that's when the riot started, and then the Hells Angels come and broke it all up. Because them police they had, Barney Fife police weren't going to break it up. But that's how. But they were in that truck, van in there, and they was on that pot or whatever the hell they was on, and they were popped up now.
Okay. So that's the riot with Waylon. Tell me about kissing Donnie Allison.
He was
what
out
happened
there, and he was always. Then I said, Donnie, ain't never, somehow or something we got going. I just hugged him and kissed him. You know what I mean? I think I got high in that bus, and I never even smoked anything. I mean, the fumes got me. And
This is why we're here. All right. So 1980. You finished 4th at Martinsville that fall. You and Benny are 3rd in the standings. You're 164 points behind Dale Earnhardt and 59 points down to Cale Yarborough. But then Benny crashed at Charlotte. The reason out at Rockingham was quit. Then blew an engine in Atlanta. And by that time, BP had dropped to 5th in the standings, 403 points out of 1st. What happened in that stretch? Was it just bad racing luck or what?
No, I tell you, our best racetracks were coming up. Charlotte, Rockingham. Halfway through that season, Cale always said, hey, dude, Mark, we was in Daytona, the firecracker race. I sat down I was on the pit wall there, and they're all lined up getting ready to qualify. Everybody's waiting, and Cale comes over and sits next to me. He never come over and talked to me, and because he never talked to nobody unless you went and talked to him. And he sits down. He said, "What's going on down there in Savannah?" I said, "Trying to beat your ass, working our ass off to beat you," because they won 3 in a row, championships in a row then, and at one time during the season there, we was right on his ass. We was ahead of Darrell, and we was ahead of, and we had some problems, crashing and stuff. Nothing of Benny's fault or just wrong place, wrong time. Anyway, and then the next race, he sat down and talked to me and everything. And toward the end of the season, I figured out what the hell happened. I thought, what the hell is he talking to me for? He never talked to me. MC hired him in July for the following year. Nobody knew about it. That's when Cale was backing down, only going to run 17, 18 races, and he wasn't going to run them all no more. He was coming with us. MC hired him, but I never knew it. 5 races to go. MC calls me in the office. We're getting ready to go to Dover. He calls me in the office, says, we was only 92 points behind him at that time. And our best tracks were coming up. We're getting ready to go to Dover. MC calls me in his office and says, I'm going to let Benny go. And I said, what? And he goes, I'm going to let him go. And
at that point, right then?
No, he said at the end of the year. Right. At the end of the year, I'm going to let him go. And I said, why? And he goes, I hired Cale Yarborough. So I'm sitting here. I've got Cale Yarborough coming. He ain't going to run them all. I said, well, this is going to be easy on me too. 16, 18 races. I got Cale Yarborough, and I didn't say nothing. He says, I'm going to tell him. And I said, don't tell him. I said, tell him at the end of the year. I knew Benny good enough, he would give up. And when we went to Dover, run like shit. Went to Charlotte, run like shit. Ontario, I said to him, the last race we was together, I said, Benny, let's go out with a bang. And we won it. I mean, we could have, Benny was so hurt.
Yeah.
And, in the meantime, Cale's bringing Valvoline. Harry Millen wanted to stay with us. Harry Millen come to me and said, I'd like to stay there, Wichens, David. To me, not Benny wasn't around it. And I went to Benny. I said, Benny, Harry wants to stay, but Cale's bringing Valvoline. What? So me and Benny sat down to race in Ontario, or it might have been the race before, and said, Harry, here's where you need to go. Go with the Elliott family.
Yeah.
Me and Benny told Harry Millen to go with Elliott's. They were only running 15, 16 races, and they really could use a good sponsor, and they're good people. And that's how we told Harry Millen to do that, and that's what he done. And then we went to Ontario and won the race, and Harry Millen shook all our hands and everything, shook MC's hands. And Benny went on to Copenhagen with Jackson Brothers, and Cale come with us with the Valvoline deal, and what MC quit over that because his plan was, and he said, Cale's going to come here, and he only going to run 17, 18 races, and we'll do that the first year, built relationships and everything, and then the next year we're going to run them all for a championship, start running them all again, and I said, Cale ain't going to run them all, MC. If he wanted to run them all, he'd stay with Junior Johnson. He's comfortable there and everything. I said, the reason he's here, he'll run them all. Anyway, we run. MC offered him $1 million to run them all. And he turned it down the second year. He turned it down. He thought he could talk, and that put such a sour taste in his mouth, that at the end of that year, he quit. Yeah. Sell it out, he said.
All right. So, 1980, you're going out to Ontario for the last race of the year. And
you should have John Dotson in.
And going through Texas, somebody gets the big idea to go across the border into Juarez.
Well, everybody done that. First thing, Elmo Langley was the mayor over there, so we were protected because we had the mayor on our side. No, everybody stopped in El Paso at the Holiday Inn there, and then they'd get a cab or whatever. They didn't have Ubers back then, or they'd get and you could walk over there really, but they'd get a cab and go over to Mexico and drink and carry on and stuff and buy a jacket that when you put your arm in the sleeve come off or whatever. And we went over there and got in a little scuffle. Barry started it, Barry Dotson and everything. We get arrested.
In Juarez.
In Juarez. They haul us about 80 miles down in there to a prison or jail or whatever. Didn't have no damn chain link thing over top of. We got to be in Ontario Friday morning. Now we're getting arrested on Tuesday or something. We got out Thursday afternoon, and we drove 11 more hours and got there Friday morning. Everybody else has done practice Thursday and everything. They're going to practice an hour practice and then qualify. And we didn't even know if we was going to get there.
Was there anybody at the racetrack?
Harry Hyde, they give me one phone call, and I called over to that Holiday Inn. That was about 3 in the morning, and I woke Harry Hyde up, and I said, Harry, we're over here in Boma Diaz, or whatever the hell the town was named. They got us in jail over here. There was me, Barry, Eddie Crapp, Pete Peterson, and we had a PGA golfer with us, George Cadle. He lost his card. He was supposed to be at the Bob Hope Desert Classic on Wednesday playing in the Pro-Am. And they yanked his PGA card. He always, every time, and I still talk to him and everything, every time he calls, he says, amigo. But anyway, we had money. They wanted $500 a piece for us to get out. They just wanted the money. They would come up to the thing. They throwed us in this holding cell with about 15, 20 Mexicans and everything, and I'll tell you,
Well, you're going to have that in Mexico.
Yeah, whatever. They threw this one that was in the Mexican army, and he could speak English. This guy would come up to the thing, and I said, tell him we got money. Tell him we got money. We'll get him out. And after about 3 or 4 times of that, when he come back up there and look in there, this guy that he could speak English, he'd start talking to him, and I'd hit him, and this was after a day and a half, 2 days, and I'd tell him we got money over on the other side. We'll go send somebody to go get it. I have money in the trunk. And that guy that was on it, he says, I know what you're saying. He could speak English the whole damn time. Anyway, the Mexican guy. And anyway, they picked Toucan out. James Murray, Toucan. Yeah. He was about the low guy on the total point. So he goes across, and that's when they had that gas war, and all the cars were backed up on the border going over again. It took him about 2 hours to go 60 miles, 4 hours, about 60 miles. And George kept saying, I'll never forget him. He wouldn't leave us here, would he? And I said, no, he wouldn't, George. George said, about every hour, he'd say, he wouldn't leave us here, would he? The golfer, to George. And I says, no. Anyway, Toucan come back and had 25, and we paid him, and we got in a cab right outside this jail or whatever the hell it was. I told them guys, I'm getting in the front next to the driver. I'm getting in the middle. There was 5 of us. I said, 3 in the back, 2 in the front. Sat in front. I said, I'm sitting next. The old 64 Chevrolet taxi cab. I said, I'm sitting in the middle. If this son of a bitch goes the wrong way, I'm kicking him out, and we're going to the border. I didn't even know which the hell way the border was. I could have been going more south. So anyway, he takes us back over. We get out. We get in that truck, and there ain't nobody saying much of anything. I mean, it took me 30. It was 32. I was 32 years old, 33. I said, it took me 32 years to grow up. I growed up right then and there. And Barry and all of them did. And we get there, and D.K. Aldridge had something on the back of his car that says Juarez Boys or some damn thing. And he heard about us. And back to Harry Hyde. I call him 3 o'clock in the morning, and I say, Harry, we're over here. Get somebody to get us out. We're over here. David, if you're shitting me, because I always play jokes on everybody. And he said, if you better be sure, don't be pulling my leg 3 o'clock in the morning, because their truck was sitting there, 4 or 5 trucks. And I got a hold of him. And anyway, he never done nothing. He just went on. And then he finally realized, he was telling the truth. They are in the jail. They all practiced. We got there Friday morning. Got out, we unloaded, we got through inspection. Anyway, 1 hour practice, we practiced, got back. Benny, he's sitting there waiting. He don't know. They didn't have cell phones or nothing to call nobody. And then Barry and everybody told him where we was, and everything. Said, damn, you guys are lucky you're out. And even I said to that one guy that said, "Where's the American consular? They come around and get the people." He said, "You might see him 6 months and then never see him again." Anyway, we got there. We're so damn scared and trying to get over it. We sat on the pole, win the race. So that settled everything. Then we go to Las Vegas, and that's when they hired Baker. Baker left, and we go to Las Vegas and have a good time. And Benny's leaving, and Cale's coming, but that was the Mexican deal. And actually, we got in such a fight. Them bars over there was like them shacks in Vietnam, and we knocked a wall down into another bar. That's how big this fight was. They come out of the walls, them people to fight. It was unreal. They should have filmed that. Lucky we're alive.
So what was MC's reaction to all this?
He just shook his head, you know what I mean? He didn't know what the hell was going to happen next. He had a crew that was loyal to him, and he was winning. Mm-hmm. That's what, and he actually done the racing for his two daughters. They loved the racing and that, and he liked it too and everything. But when he quit, I tell you, boom, that was it. He quit. There was no in between. And I stop every once in a while when I'm in Florida. I stop and see Andrea, and I asked her one time, "Whatever happened to all your trophies and everything?" And that, and said, "He just got rid of them all.
Really?
Give them all away. When he quit."
Now, 1981, you do run a partial schedule. You win a couple of races and everything, but late in the season, you parted ways with the team. What happened?
Cale, we were going to Martinsville, and I knew it was we were getting behind. It was like if you didn't run them all, you would get behind. Okay. And we would run Michigan. We run somewhere, and then a month later, we're going to Michigan. And I can remember saying, when did they start allowing you to do this? We kept getting further and further behind by not running them all. It ended up going to be 16 races. MC wanted to go to Martinsville, end of the year. Cale, that wasn't the one on the schedule. Cale called me and says, "Who sent that entry into Martinsville?" And I says, "Andrea had done all that. She would send them in." And he says, "I'm not going to Martinsville. That's not on the schedule. MC knows that." And I says, "Don't worry about Cale. So I go up front and I tell MC, I said, "Cale don't want to go to Martinsville." MC looks at me and said, "Who do you work for?" And I says, "Well, I work for you." He says, "When I tell you get a car ready to go to a race, you get it ready. We're going to Martinsville." I didn't say no more. Right then I knew it was, take it back. We were going to Darlington before Martinsville. We get to Darlington. Cale comes in there. We first practice. They'd always get there an hour. We're already through inspection and everything. He walks in there. He says, "Who sent that entry in? I'm not going to Martinsville." And before that and everything, he said, "You tell MC I'm not going to Martinsville." Well, we run the race. We broke a rocker arm, dropped out, leading it. Come in the garage area. MC always watched the race from the top of the truck. I by the truck. Here comes MC down off the ladder. Here comes Cale going to go in. I stopped them both. I said, "You two decide whether you're going to go to Martinsville next week." And I walked off. I mean, I ain't going to work and get a car ready and then you don't go and this and that. We got enough work to do to go to the next one we was going to run because we only had, back then you had 6, 8 guys, motor room and everything. So that's kind of what, and at the end of the year, there was agreement, and everything. He told everybody I stole something or anything. I didn't steal anything in my life. And it ended,
So
then Tim Brewer come and run it the last year.
Yeah. So you wound up with David Pearson in 1982, and your first race out of the box with him at Charlotte in the spring, you sit on the pole.
He ain't drove a car in 2 years. Humpy Wheeler called me. David had the Chattanooga Chew deal with his son, and they were going to give him 5-race deal. And David's back was done. Yeah. He couldn't run, and he told me that. He said, "David, you built a car and everything," and he couldn't. he couldn't go 5. He did go. We ended up 5th or 6th, but the next race, Michigan, he could go halfway, and he knew it. He couldn't go no more because of his back. But anyway, built that car, and we run 5 races, I think, and then I kind of had my little own shop myself then, and I was doing cars and stuff, and actually I was building some A-frames and trailing arms for Rick Hendricks. He was just starting back then, and I had my own shop then. I was freelancing then, doing stuff.
How did you get hooked up with Jack Beebe and Ron Bouchard?
Ronnie Bouchard, the time he won Talladega,
Yeah.
I was with Cale, MC Anderson. All the practice was over, and they had a late practice Saturday afternoon. Cale was done, we were done practicing. Me and Pete was leaning against our car with the car cover on it, and a few cars were out there practicing, and Ronnie was walking up through I never knew Ronnie. I knew who he was, but I never met him or anything. He walks up there, and he starts asking, he says, hey, my car doing this here and everything, and I asked Ronnie down the road, because we become real good friends, and I said, why'd you come up and want me? He said, well, I seen you, and he got a Valvoline uniform on, and Cale Yarborough's crew chief, he must know what he's doing. So he had Bob Johnson. Well, they never raced speedways or anything, and he had a Laughlin chassis, which that's what we were running. And I said, what's the front end set at? And I said, he said, I don't know and everything. Well, I seen Bob in action. And he said, come down. I says, I ain't going down there set no front end. And he said, no, he won't care. I'll go. So
Bob had short fuse.
So I went down there and I showed him. I said, Pete, get the front end plates and the gate. We'll go down there. We put them on the way, and we rolled down there. And we said, and Bob said, yes. So we set it all up. We blowed up. We're on our way out through the tunnel and going down the road. Me and Pete, we always rode together. We're listening to the race on TV, and Ronnie wins it. And we just set his front end, me and Pete, and he said, you believe in that kid won that race? And I says, and that's Ronnie, that's how I got to know Ronnie real good. And him and his wife Paula, which was Eddie Flipke's daughter, and my wife, Paula, and my wife, and me and Ronnie, we'd go up there, even when we were retired, before he died, we'd go every year up there and spend a week, and they'd come down. He had a house in Florida, and all 4 of us would go there and everything. Ronnie done well after he got out of. He used his name to get where he's at. I mean, he nicest guy you ever want to meet. Ronnie and Benny, 2 of a kind. You know what I mean?
You had some really good runs with Ron, particularly in 1984, but you couldn't quite get over the hump and into victory lane. Was there a race in particular that
I tell you
away?
What when we were at Race Hill Farms, they brought the modified crew down there, and these guys knew what they were doing, but they were in that type of racing. They were so into the light stuff, and we would break all the time. And we run up front all the time, top 5 everywhere we went, top 10 until we broke. There were just little things. When you're on the road, you can't control. You got a guy back in the shop and that, and Vic Kangas, smart guy, Cheech Gardy, all these guys. But I can remember unloading at Michigan, and we put the clutch in. That's when they had the shaft, didn't have hydraulic clutches. The shaft broke, and I said, it's made out of aluminum. To try to lighten it up. Well, painted black, you don't know if it's aluminum or steel. I said, who made this here? Who put this on this car? And, so we had to miss the first practice, get the one off the other car, and it ain't just right, and we got to cut and weld. And it just, that's what hurt us. And eventually we got where you could teach these guys, look, this is a 3,400-pound car. This ain't a 2,700-pound modified with tires that wide. And I tell you what else, when I first went and helped him, Ronnie would go back and race a modified race on an off weekend or 2 weekends off. He'd go back and race 2 or 3 nights modified racing. When he come back for us to run a race, I remember at Wilkesboro, we should have won that race, but he come back and he ain't got no brakes. Brakes won't. It took us the first practice for him to get immaculated back to what car he was in. And it's easy to do. I mean, when you jump out of one car and jump, I seen Terry Labonte be the fastest car at Darlington in his Busch car. Jump out of that car, go over there and practice that Cup car, come back, get in it to qualify it, and miss the race. And I said, Terry, what in the hell happened? He says, I forgot what car I was in. It's a whole different feel, whole different driving deal. Anyway, Ronnie, we done good. When we were running, we would run. But then the second year, we got a little better. And then, you know what I mean? I was, 2.5 years? I think I helped Ronnie and them, and then I left. And I was burnt out. After how many years, 25, 30 years, I was just burnt out, and I had my little shop I was building, and I started just doing cars and freelancing myself out. And General Motors, Ray Smith from Buick and that, every time they needed somebody to go do something, they would call me and pay me to go do it. So I didn't have the pressure and the obligations of, and have to answer to people and everything. If they run good, they run good. And I done Rick Corelli's cars out west. He won the championship 2 times, won a bunch of races with him, and just different out of my own little shop. And they'd take the cars and they'd fly me out there and different, like I went up there and helped Morgan McClure when they had Robbie Gordon and stuff and left and everything. And it just, I was contract labor the last, So.
Well, you talk about all the drivers and teams that you worked with, and you worked in several different series. You must have the absolute mother of all crew uniform collections.
I had race uniforms and that, and I don't know if they're still. You remember the Wives Auxiliary or whatever? Remember the wives would collect stuff and have an auction?
Yeah.
And what was I going to do with them? I had Darrell Waltrip's Gatorade uniforms, because when them drivers left, they wouldn't give me one uniform, or something like you got all hanging here.
Yeah.
I had Darrell Waltrip uniform, Cale Yarborough uniforms, George Foreman uniforms, Parnelli Jones uniforms, and everything. And I give them all to that Wives. And I think somebody told me that they made about $26,000 off the stuff I give them.
I can believe it.
With I had Valvoline shirts, Gatorade shirts, still packed in the thing. And my whole history is races you could put in a shoebox what I got left. I mean, the younger generations, I got some old cars, and they don't want that crap.
Right.
And I told my grandkid the other day, and he's 30 years old, I said, these could be yours one day if you come over here and wash them and clean them up once in a while. He said, which one's worth the most money? I mean, that's what, they don't. And my wife even says now, she's been throwing away stuff. I see so many people get older and they die off and leave all this crap to their kids, and now they got to deal with it. My kids ain't going to have to deal with nothing. It's all be gone. My wife was throwing pictures away the other day of people she went to high school with that died and stuff, and she's throwing away. I said, damn, it ain't going to take long to get mine thrown out, is it?
One last question.
You mean that's only one more question? It's going to be over?
I've got one.
I'll take 2.
Okay, all right.
Last one from me. I remember years ago at a racetrack, the MC Anderson truck hauler had the rear doors open. Back in those days, you didn't have steps and sliding doors in there. Right in the center, there is a piece of wood going up like this from a tree. Wrapped around it is a snake. And this snake is evil looking, but it's dead. There's a guy on MC Anderson's team standing outside the truck saying, all right, come on, guys, get that thing out of here. I got to go to work. Get that thing out of here. Who was that guy?
That was Pete Pierce. He brought that snake. And how that come about, when you're in Savannah, they got snakes. There's a big rattlesnake. They cut the head of it off. And this snake was 13 feet long, and it filled, when he skinned it, when they brought it back. And we killed it that morning right out of by the race shop out there. It was up the back of the race shop there, and it covered a board 13 foot long, 10 inches wide. The skin did. Wow. After anyway, I said, "What are you gonna do with it?" He said he wasn't afraid of nothing. He went out there and chopped his head off and loaded it in. It filled a bushel basket. That snake did. So he brought it, and they had some kind of. He wrapped it up around some kind of pipe or something, and let it on the back of the truck there. And even A.J. Foyt come over and says, "You people's crazy." Yeah. But that's how that come out. Then he put it back in the bushel basket when we were there. I think it was a firecracker race, wasn't it?
I think so.
And went back home because down there, we used to be down there for 11, 12 days during the 500, and it was like a 4-day deal. And he took it back home and cleaned it and put it on, varnished it, put it on that board. That's how big that snake was.
So my last question is, the one thing that you hear about David Ifft is all the teams that he's worked for and everything, but you also hear about the practical jokes and the Juarez jail time and all that. What's the best practical joke that you ever pulled on somebody? And also, who is your favorite patsy? Who did you enjoy going after the most?
Well, he'll remember. Probably and Baker was in on this joke. Do you? Buck Begance.
Oh, yeah.
They would drive down to Savannah when Baker drove it, and old Buck was his Coomba buddy. He even helped us on the pit crew. Well, the sheriff down there in Garden City, where the shop was, the police department, the sheriff, his name was Red Davis, and he would always come by. He'd come to the races with us and everything. He loved it, racing. They were coming. Baker called me and said, "We got to get Buck somewhere. That some bitch is always pulling stuff on me." So Red was happened to be there, and I said, "Baker's going to be here." But where's he coming in? I said, "He come in on 21." He said, "I'm going to get him." Buck was driving, so he gets up there with his comp car, and he pulls Buck Begance over. And Buck, you know how Buck was.
Oh.
He was a world-famous motorcycle rider. And he pulls him over, and he's a little short, fat guy. And Baker's sitting over there, and he said, "Where'd you get this car at?" He said, "It's my car and everything." And he said, "Let's start the registration." He says, "You've been drinking and everything." This is 11 o'clock in the morning. And Buck said, No. He got Buck so riled up, he said, "You're going to jail. Let's go." And he got him out. Baker knew what was going on. Throwed him in the comp cart. Baker got in, and he followed him to jail. And Baker calls me and says, "David, come on over to do it." We go in there, and me and Baker's behind this plate, glass you can't see, and this Red's got him in there, and two more cops, he's telling them, they're interrogating him, you know what I mean, about, "You didn't murder nobody down here, did you?" We got papers to show, and his leg starts shaking like that, and Baker said, "That's enough, that's enough." And when Buck started going like this, and Buck was probably 60-something years old then, and when we hit him, you could have seen his face. He was ready to kill us. But that, we really got him, and Baker loved that when we got him, because Buck was always pulling jokes.
Oh, yeah. I knew Buck.
Now, was there anybody in NASCAR that you really particularly liked going after?
Dale Edmond. He would, after he tortured me for about 5 or 6 years, my arms were black and blue. He'd come up, he'd tell you, shake a hand and put his thumb in turn it. Damn, Dale, And we was at Dover, and Dale would always kid with me, and I'd always kid back with him. We was at Dover, and finally, after so long, my arms were sore, I picked him up and put him in a barrel. Shoved him in the barrel, and he never grabbed me again. I said, "Darryl," and I said, "I'm serious, Dale. You're hurting me." I said, "I go home and my hands is."
Yeah.
Anyway, that Dale helped me a lot too, coming along, and guys, and Red Myler down at Bud Moore's, old
Right.
Red. He was against Man for Bud and everything. He was there forever. He used to work with the Petties. He come down here with Tiny Lund from Iowa, and guys like that, and racing. I was blessed to do what I'd done. Every day was Saturday to me. It wasn't a job. It was something you love to do and everything. And I was always wanting to try stuff and be a little bit, and I got a lot of that stuff and cheating stuff and everything, but you ain't cheating unless you get caught.
That's true.
What's your best cheating story then?
I got so many of them. Well, when Benny drove, they never weighed the cars after the race. I could get 120, 40 pounds out of that car before he even got in it.
Wow.